everybody. Looks like we've got a couple of people in here right now. Um, so I want to welcome everybody and welcome the people that may be watching this later on and not live um, to the second installment of There's Something About Tarantino. Hey, Blissful. And as promised, I will be covering Pulp Fiction and Four Rooms tonight. I'm going to briefly go over all the segments in Four Rooms, but I'm going to focus on Tarantino's offering. Okay. Um, to kind of keep it, a little bit reeled in so I don't get too unwieldy with it and talk too long because we are trying to focus, or I'm trying to focus mostly on the Tarantino stuff. Now, I believe he was an executive producer on Four Rooms. Um, and you can definitely see Tarantino's stamp on the entire project. So I won't keep going on and on about that because that will be the second movie that I talk about. I did want to, and you guys are probably going to get tired of me showing you these things I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but I did get the 4K of the original Death Wish in starring Charles Bronson. Um, I'm not going to lie. This is a very disturbing film, and it's disturbing every time I watch it, but Charles Bronson is just fantastic in it. This is the Kino Lorber 4K release. So again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Kino Lorber is not generally known for having a lot of extras on their releases. They do a good job with the transfer, so I'm really looking forward to watching this. But it does have audio commentary by film historian Paul Talbot, the author of the Bronson's Loose books. And there's an interview with actor John Hersfeld and a theatrical trailer. And that's about it on that. But I'll have to get back with you guys on how that transfer actually looks. And please pardon me, I've got some more vegetable soup that I was fixing a little bit earlier and it didn't get done until just a few minutes ago. And so I'm kind of hungry. So if you guys will permit me this little indulgence of eating, at least at the beginning of this stream. So I also wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow night will be my first ever Ask Me Anything stream. Now, I do want to caution you guys, it is an Ask Me Anything, and I don't think any of you regulars are going to be, go crazy with this. But please take it easy on me and be kind with what you ask, because I will try to answer any and all questions to the best of my ability. But again, I don't think that any of you regular guys are going to be like this, but I would prefer vulgar questions not being asked, like, what's your and Steve's sex life like? I don't I don't really want to answer questions like that. And I probably would, if somebody did ask that, I'd probably say, I'd rather not answer that. I'm not going to go into personal details of my life. But if you want to ask me about movies or books or, you could even ask me, computer questions or something like that, or stuff about my setup in the living room as far as TV and sound system and speakers and all of that. Yeah, Russell, you're right. Don't give people ideas. Yeah, I probably just gave some lurkers some real good ideas. They'll be coming in here asking me all kinds of things. Um, so I thought, when I said something about sex slave, I thought I lost one of the people, but somebody is back. I don't know if that's the same person or not. Um, hey, Texas. But I just want to remind everybody about that. And also, Thursday will be the next installment of My Dinner with De Palma. And again, we're going to be covering, or I'm going to be covering, Passion and Domino. Um, I've still got to hunt up both of those movies. I think Steve has Passion on the hard drive somewhere. So I shouldn't have any problem getting that one watched. Now, Domino, I'm going to have to look into a little bit more. Um, so I want to take a couple of bites of more of this soup. I'm really, really hungry about now. It's been busy at work, and although I eat my meals and stuff, it's just being, active and not getting to take, like, sometimes it's been after 1 o'clock here, before I've gotten to take my lunch. One day I think it was after 2 before I ever got to take my lunch. So, and I try to, because I am diabetic, I try to take my lunch at a regular time. But as anybody knows, has had a job where you're on the phones a lot of the time, sometimes it's just hard, um, to break away a little bit. Texas, you said Dana, make sure Red is banned from the Ask Me Anything. uh, well, you know what, Texas, I haven't actually seen Red around lately, and I sincerely hope that I did not piss the guy off, or make him feel like he was unwelcome. Um, I just I was feeling a bit bitchy that night that he um talked about how long I took to discuss the things that the people were putting in the chat. And although he might have not meant it the way it came off, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I he had made other comments at other points and times, and so I at that point I had had enough. And I maybe shouldn't have barked at him like I should, or like I did rather. Um, but it just, that particular night, it just got to me. Any other night, and I probably would have let it go. But I don't know if I'd had a hard week or a hard, day, or what it was. But it just, like I said, it just rubbed me the wrong way that night. In Texas, you say he's being shitty. Well, I I guess there's two schools of thought on that. I know. I think it was Darren that said he didn't think that Red meant anything by what he said. Um, which he maybe didn't. And like I said, I maybe shouldn't have kind of barked at him. I put the bulldog face on, and I might have been a little bit too harsh with him, by telling him if he didn't like the way I did my streams, then he didn't have to come to them. Um, but that's just the way I felt that particular night. Like I said, any other night, and I might have been okay with it. But so we got 5 in here right now. So I think that's probably a good number to go ahead and get started with the movies, because I don't want to delay too much. Um, so we're going to talk about Pulp Fiction first. This is my 4K that I got recently. Um, So I am going to start this off as I do many times, and see if we can find a pretty decent trailer for Pulp Fiction. Let's see. Hold on just 1 second here. Okay. Trying to determine which one's better here. Okay, so I am going to share my screen with you guys. Okay.
Irresistibly smooth chocolate to put the world on pause. Lindor, made to melt you by the Lindt Master Chocolatier.
Okay.
Miramax Films is proud to present one of the most celebrated motion pictures of the year. The winner of the 1994 Palme d'Or, the best picture of the Cannes Film Festival.
Come on, let's get in character. I'm so interested in Big Man's wife. Well, he's going into town, Florida, and he asked me if I could take care of her while he's gone. Take care of him? No, man. Just show her a good time, make sure she don't get lonely. Girl, you see, this is a moral test of oneself.
I do believe Marcellus, my husband, your boss, told you to take me out and do whatever I wanted.
I love you so much, can't count on whether or not you can maintain loyalty.
Night of the fight, you may feel a slight sting. Pride only hurts. It never helps. In the fifth, your ass goes down.
I have to say, play with matches, you get burned.
We should have shotguns for this kind of deal.
We're in a lot of danger, aren't we?
I'm prepared to scour the earth for that night.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Get down, get down. You got a corpse in a car, minus the head in the garage. Take me to it.
Don't you hate that?
Hey, what?
Uncomfortable silences.
John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, Maria de Medeiros, Bing Rames, Eric Stoltz, Rosanna Arquette, Christopher Walken, and Bruce Willis.
Looking at something for you, my friend Plucker.
A new film directed by Quentin Tarantino. Pulp Fiction.
You really thinking about quitting?
Most definitely.
What's you gonna do then?
Basically, I'm just gonna walk the earth.
What you mean walk the earth?
You know, like Kane in Kung Fu.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So hopefully that was a halfway decent trailer. I got tired of trying to get the halfway decent trailer on IMDb. So I've started going to YouTube now. And I think those trailers are a little bit better than what I was getting on IMDb. I believe what you say is a good idea to ban Red Red. You love this movie? Well, I do too, Blissful. Actually, Reservoir Dogs, as I talked about last week, was actually the first Tarantino movie I ever saw. But as much as I love Reservoir Dogs, I feel like, for me anyway, that Pulp Fiction is a little bit further up the staircase for me. And I think probably because, for me anyway, it's got so much more going on than just like the basic story of Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs was an excellent, excellent story. And it moved along well and all of that, and had rich character, well written characters. I love the design of it. I love the atmosphere. I love the actors in it. All of that. But then when I watched Pulp Fiction, because I became a rabid Tarantino fan when I saw Reservoir Dogs. And keep in mind, I did not watch these things when they came out. So I don't know if I was still in my little horror bubble at that point in time, and just wasn't paying attention when Tarantino kind of blew up on the screen, so to speak. And so I was a little bit delayed with that. But once I got a hold of Reservoir Dogs and I watched it, I wanted to see everything that Tarantino was directing. Hence, getting Pulp Fiction. As soon as I was able to see, I can't remember if I got the DVD first. I want to say I did. And then moved on to Blu-ray, and now I've got the 4K. I love the way. Now I know that Tarantino has said in past interviews that he hates it when people say that the movie was non-linear or it was out of order. And so I'm not going to say it that way. Not that I think Tarantino's going to watch this stream, but he could. And I don't want to piss the guy off about it by saying, oh, yeah, this is a non-linear presentation. But I will say that I love the way it's designed. I love the way the stories intertwine with each other. And I love the way that Tarantino he seems to make me, and I would love to hear what the rest of you guys think too, if it makes you feel the same way. That movies like Pulp Fiction made me feel a little off kilter. They make me feel unsure and all of that, but that's all part of the fun of these types of movies. And I think Tarantino is a master of doing that. And so you have the story of the couple played by Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer in the coffee shop at the beginning of the movie. Their story is going to intertwine with the story of the two hitmen. And then the two hitmen story is going to intertwine with a couple of other stories. And I absolutely love the way it does that. And it's almost like building blocks. It keeps building and building and building. So the opening scene, like I said, is a couple played by Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer, Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, as they call each other in the movie, are in a coffee shop. And at first you just think, well, they're just a couple that's having some coffee at the local coffee shop, and I'm just going to go along for the ride here. But we soon realized that they are essentially criminals, and they've been knocking off liquor stores, and making a little bit of money. And so Tim Roth is basically saying, never again, I'm not going to do this again, it's too dangerous, yada yada yada. And Amanda Plummer saying, you always do that and you sound like a duck. And so there, you pretty quickly begin to realize that although these people are kind to each other and they're talking about not wanting to kill anybody during these robberies, um, when they decide that all of a sudden they're going to rob not the liquor store, the coffee shop. When they get into the mode where we're ready to do it. So Tim Roth pulls out a gun, lays it on the table, and he says, just like last time. And he tells Amanda Plummer that she's going to be crowd control. And then they jump up and he's pointing the gun at people and he said, all right, everybody, this is a robbery. And then Amanda Plummer, like, she looks crazed in this. She says, all right, if any of you fucking pricks move, I'll execute every motherfucking one of you. And then it goes into the Pulp Fiction title. And I was just like, holy shit. The first time I seen this, I was like, what kind of ride am I in for? Because this was a little bit more of a slam bang punch in the gut kind of opening in comparison with Reservoir Dogs. Yep, Zed's dead, baby. That's exactly right, Texas. So that there was that cannon blast, and you're like, whoa, and you don't really have time to recover from that before you're introduced to the two hitmen who at first we don't know where they're going. Who are they going to kill somebody? Obviously they're going to do some kind of dirty work because they're hitmen. Okay, so they have a conversation, which Tarantino is notorious for having his characters have these long, um, well, it's seemingly well thought out, in-depth conversations in his movies. And so when we're introduced to Vincent and Jules, they are having a discussion in the car about Vincent has just come back from Amsterdam and he's talking about hash bars and how if you have hash on you, the cops can't search you in Amsterdam. uh it is illegal to carry, but they can't search you. Like if they stop you in your car, they can't search you. And this excites Jules. And these two characters are played. Vincent's played by John Travolta, and Jules is played by Samuel L. Jackson. And marvelous casting choice, by the way. There. So then the conversation turns to going to McDonald's in Amsterdam. And so Vincent is telling Jules that they don't call it a Big Mac in Amsterdam because of the metric system. And or not a Big Mac, a quarter pounder with cheese. They don't. Vincent says they don't even know what the fuck a quarter pounder is because of the metric system. So they call it a Royale with cheese, and they call a Big Mac a La Big Mac. And then he talks about drowning French fries in mayonnaise, and obviously Jules thinks that's pretty gross. So they finally arrive at this building, apparently an apartment building. And so as they are walking into the building, they start talking about their boss, Marcellus Wallace, and his wife. And his wife, Mia, we soon find out that Vincent is supposed to take her out and show her a good time because Marcellus is going to be out of town. But they get into this conversation about this guy who they call Tony Rocky Horror. Supposedly, Marcellus Wallace threw this guy out a window for massaging his wife Mia's feet. And so then they get into another whole discussion, a very in-depth discussion on foot massages. And only Tarantino I think only Tarantino could get away with doing this because he knows how to set these shots up properly in order not to bore the audience. I mean, I pretty much was hanging on every word these two guys were discussing, you know. So it was like, really? He threw Tony Rocky Horror out the window because he massaged Mia's feet? And where is this going, you know? And so there's a little back and forth between Vincent and Jules and a little, you know, sarcasm and a few fuck yous thrown in there and all that. And they actually don't knock on the door of the apartment that they're supposed to be going into at first. They say it's not quite time, so everything's in a certain time frame. I'm not sure if Marcellus told them, hey, don't knock on the door until this time, but they kind of step aside and continue the Mia foot massage discussion a little bit, and then they go and they knock on the door, and there's at least three guys in the like living room / kitchen area, and one of the guys is a guy that's with Vincent and Jules, and I guess he's like a plant, you know. He's meant to set up these other guys. So these guys have something that belongs to Marcellus Wallace, and it's a suitcase. When open, you can see this golden glow come out of it, but nobody is ever shown. You're never shown at any point in time in the movie what is in that suitcase. There have been a lot of theories over the years of what is in the suitcase. I know some people had said they thought it was Marcellus's soul. I certainly hope not, because the combination to the suitcase is 666. I've heard people say, because Marcellus Wallace, if you notice, he's bald, so you can see that on the back of his head, near his neck, he has a band-aid. Now, it could be simply that he shaves his head, like my husband does. My husband, when he started losing his hair, first he got, you know, the fake hair, and then he decided, you know, screw it, I'm just going to shave my head. And so he keeps his head shaved now. And Steve was bald whenever I met him and when we started dating. So it really doesn't matter to me either way. But anyway, to get back around to Marcellus Wallace, I mean, it could be that he's got a band-aid because he nicked himself when he was shaving his head. Steve has done that plenty of times. But a lot of people had different theories about that, what the band-aid was. Somebody said that he had 666 on the back of his head and that he was covering it up with the band-aid. There's all kinds of theories that you can look at online for both the suitcase and Marcellus Wallace's the reason for the band-aid on the back of his head. So Vincent and Jules get the suitcase. We don't really know why these guys had it, and that is never really explained. I'm sure people got theories on that. But for whatever reason, they weren't going to give it back to Marcellus. And they kind of had it hidden in their apartment. I guess they didn't think that some hitmen would come after them to obtain the suitcase to retrieve it. So there's a lot of gunfire, and Jules does his infamous speech about the shepherd. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because if you've not, I could not do it justice by repeating the lines that Samuel L. Jackson delivered so beautifully and viciously in this movie. So if you have not seen Pulp Fiction, then I want to just leave you to it, to be able to watch it at your leisure and be able to experience that for yourself. Now, you people that have already seen it, you know exactly what speech I'm talking about. So then a guy comes out of the bathroom that they did not know was there, and pretty much point blank, he should have killed both Vincent and Jules. And he doesn't. I mean, no bullets hit them at all. And they're just astounded, you know. So they take their guy, Marvin, and they leave. And then Jules starts talking about divine intervention. And eventually, he will say that he no longer wants to do this line of work. And Vincent wants to, you know, remain a hitman. I guess he likes doing what he's doing. So where their story intertwines with the coffee shop story, with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny and the robbery, is they eventually end up in the coffee shop during the robbery. And I'm just going to leave it there. So the two hitmen, their story also intertwines with Bruce Willis's character's story of Butch, the boxer, who Marcellus is setting up. He's pretty much talking to Butch, and he's telling him, your ass goes down in the fifth. And basically Butch fucks him. That's what he does. And takes the money and runs. Because Marcellus had given him some money to go down in the fifth during this fight. And instead, Butch pretty much kills the other boxer. And like I said, takes the money and runs. Goes back to a hotel he's staying at with his girlfriend. And then there's another story that is Butch's, you know, backstory, because he gets really upset when he realizes that his girlfriend did not get his father's watch. So we get this backstory of Christopher Walken. This got a fantastic cast, and Four Rooms has a fantastic cast too, which I'm going to talk about soon. So Christopher Walken enters the picture. He's talking to a young Butch. Butch's father had died in Vietnam, and before he died, he gave Christopher Walken's character his watch. And it's a funny a bit in the movie whenever Christopher Walken is telling young Butch how they hid this watch. First, Butch's father hid it up his ass. And then when he died, And he had, before he died, he gave Christopher Walken the watch. So Christopher Walken put it up his ass for a while. And so then he's presenting this watch to Butch, and he's telling the whole story behind the watch, how it's passed through different generations, and that it was Butch's birthright and all of that. So that is why Butch basically goes apeshit whenever he realizes that his girlfriend had left the watch back at their apartment. She'd packed up everything else but forgot his watch. So he throws stuff and he's going crazy. She's cowering in a corner. And then he apologizes to her, gives her some money, tells her to go get some blueberry pancakes, which she is wanting. And he leaves, and he's all the time he's driving, he's like, I can't believe she forgot the fucking watch. Of all the things she could have forgotten and left, she forgot that. So he goes to his apartment to get his watch. And here's another scene where he intertwines with one half of the hitman duo, which is Vincent. And so he knows something doesn't feel quite right when he goes into the apartment. It's very quiet and stuff. So he gets his watch. He goes to the bedroom. He gets the watch. He's coming back through the kitchen, and there's a big gun laying on his counter in the kitchen. And he's like, something's not right here. And at about that point, Vincent comes out of the bathroom. And so Butch quickly grabs the gun and kills Vincent. Okay. And I hope there's not too many people here watching this that haven't seen it, because they're going to be like, shit, Danny, you gave all this stuff away. So at this point, around this point, Butch's story is going to intertwine with Marcellus Wallace's once again. Because when he's headed back to the hotel, he sees Marcellus Wallace in the street, and I guess he's got a cake or donuts or something in a bakery box. And Marcellus Wallace looks at him, and it's almost like, to me, it was like the scene in Psycho when Marion has told her boss that she's not feeling well. She's just going to drop that money off at the bank, and then she's going to go home and sleep off her headache. Instead, she is taking the money and running. And when she's headed out of town, she sees her boss walking across the street. So I don't know if that's what Tarantino was envisioning when he put this scene of Butch in the car, seeing Marcellus Wallace crossing the street. And this takes a very vicious turn in that Butch just slams on the gas, runs into Marcellus head on. And then, Marcellus has got a gun. He's trying to shoot Butch. There's all this stuff going on. And then they end up in a pawn shop, I guess would be the best way to describe this place. And so Butch goes in there, and he's wanting to get something to fight Marcellus with, and the owner's like, you're not gonna do anything. This is my shop, And then Marcellus Wallace comes in, and then they both get overtaken because this guy's got a big gun of his own, pretty much. And then he calls somebody who we find out is Zed, Zed comes over, and I guess Zed is like some kind of security guard or something. But these two guys have got in their head they're going to do some nasty things to Butch and Marcellus. And they also had the Gimp. This is the entrance of the Gimp. Um, I really, it's a wild idea and it's a fun idea. It's crazy. It's all of that. Yes, exactly. Texas, bring out the Gimp, which is exactly what they say. We never see the Gimp's face. Of course, he's got a leather mask, hood, whatever you want to call it, on him. And I'm sure the Gimp was going to be intertwined in the sexual escapades that Zed and the other guy are planning. Maynard, I think is the guy's name. Zed and Maynard are planning on visiting upon Butch and Marcellus. So they do a eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and Marcellus is it, which means he's going to get screwed up the ass by these two guys eventually. So Zed gets his turn first. Meanwhile, Bruce Willis figures out how to get out of the ropes that they've got him in. And then basically all hell breaks loose and they end up killing the two guys. And then Butch and Marcellus have a discussion about how, they'll let, Marcellus is going to let bygones be bygones as long as Butch never breathes a word of what transpired in that pawn shop in the back room. And he also tells Butch to get out of there, to leave the country, and don't come back. And so Butch takes Zed's motorcycle, goes to pick up his girlfriend. And this is where he said, Zed's dead, baby, because she's like, who's Zed? She was like, where did you get this motorcycle? It's Zed's. Who's Zed? Zed's dead, baby. And then they take off. So I'm going to back it up a little bit and talk about the Mia Wallace story, which is very action packed. And probably my favorite, it's hard to pick like a favorite segment in this movie. But for me, probably the Mia Wallace stuff is probably my favorite. Because remember, I said that Marcellus wanted Vincent to take Mia out because he was going to be out of town, like basically show her a good time. So before he goes to Marcellus Wallace's house to pick up Mia, he stops by his buddy Eric Stoltz's house. And Eric Stoltz is a drug dealer pretty much. And he's got all these different types of heroin. And so Vincent ends up buying some off of him. And then he does a little bit of it. And then he's on his way to pick up Mia. So Mia wants to go to Jackrabbit Slim's, which is one of the coolest restaurants I've ever seen. I don't know if Jackrabbit Slim's is a real thing or not. Maybe you guys could shed some light on that. But it is so cool because it's got a lot of people dressed up as 1950s characters. They can sit in these cool 1950s cars that have tables in them. And like it's like Buddy Holly takes your order, and Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield, and like, so if you're really into 1950s stuff, you will really, really enjoy this scene. And maybe even if you don't like 1950s stuff, because the scene is so cool. So she wants to go to Jackrabbit Slim's, and when they pull up out there outside of Jackrabbit Slim's, uh, Vincent's like, "Why don't we just go somewhere else?" And she's like, "Don't be such a square." And she actually does the square, and that is really cool. I think that's a added little thing there. And so then they order, and Mia gets a $5 shake. And believe it or not, in Austin, Texas, when Steve and I went to Austin, Texas, back when we were dating, and we wanted to go to the Alamo Draft House. Well, as many people know, the Alamo Draft House has uh, where you can eat while you're watching the movie. And I'm not talking about just popcorn and drinks. I'm talking about you can pretty much get a full course meal in this place. And it's not cheap. I'll be honest about that. But we went there more than once. And on one of the occasions that we went, I got a $5 shake. And so I don't know if that's in, honor of Tarantino and Pulp Fiction, or if they already had that, in place, or, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with Tarantino. But $5 shake, I had to get it because the huge Tarantino and Pulp Fiction fan that I am. And it was a pretty good shake. I don't know if it was as good as they talk about the one in the movie being, but it was very good, very tasty. So, um, so then after they have their meal and they participate in the dance contest and they win, um, they go back to Mia's house. And so, what Vincent plans to do, and he talks to himself in Mia's bathroom, about how he's gonna say goodnight, and then go home and jerk off. He says, and that's all you're going to do. So, meanwhile, Vincent lent his trench coat to Mia, and Mia's still wearing it when they came home. So, while Vincent's in the bathroom, she's like, she's going to smoke a joint or smoke a cigarette or something. She's feeling around in his pockets, obviously, for a lighter. And she finds his heroin. She's like, hello. And I'm guessing that she thinks it's cocaine. And because we've had at least 2 scenes where she snorted cocaine. So she puts out some lines of this heroin and snorts it up her nose. Bad idea. So by the time Vincent comes out of the bathroom, Mia is almost dead. I mean, she's laying on the floor. There's blood coming out of her nose. She's vomited. And I would imagine she's barely breathing at this point. She looks absolutely terrible. She looks grotesque like this. So he freaks out. He goes over to Eric Stoltz's house, or he tells Eric Stoltz, he's like, hey, Lance, this is what's happening. I'm coming over there. And he's like, don't bring this overdosing bitch to my house. Don't do that. And it's too late. He brings her, and Lance's wife, played by Rosanna Arquette, is like all pissed off because she's trying to sleep. And basically Vincent is running to their house with his car. And then of course he's got Mia in tow and she's all limp and stuff like that. And so they decide they're going to have to give her an adrenaline shot. And so Lance is like, I've never done this before. I need my medical book. because I need to know, where her heart is, approximately where the heart is, so he can stab her in the chest with this adrenaline shot. So they get a magic marker and make a red dot on Mia's chest. And so Lance is like, he acts like he's going to do it at first, and then he's like, I can't, and makes Vincent do it. And so he says, you have to bring it down really hard, and it has to go on through her breastplate to get to her heart. So it's kind of funny, this scene, because they do the countdown, and then he goes and stabs her in the heart with this. And then she goes like that, and they're all, like that. And she looks down, and the needle is still sticking out of her chest. And so then later, Vincent takes her home, and they have a discussion about Marcellus need never know about this, because Mia basically says, if Marcellus found out about this, I would be in as much trouble as you. That's what she tells Vincent. So they decide to just keep that to themselves. So just want to make sure that I don't leave anything out of this wonderful movie. Yes, Blissful. The booths in the diner were amazing. I really enjoyed that touch with it. So, like I said, the Mia Wallace storyline is probably my favorite, even though overall I love the movie. So another, and you guys are probably thinking that I'm the most gruesome person ever, that I find this funny, but after they leave the apartment building and retrieve this Marcellus's suitcase, they take Marvin with them, their guy that was the plant in the apartment. And so I think at this point, Jules is talking about divine intervention and all that, and Vincent's not having any of it. And he has the gun in his hand, and he turns to look at Marvin to ask him, do you believe this shit or whatever? And the gun goes off and blows Marvin's head off. So I'm not going to be able to mention the great line in total, because I was told by a very good source that if you say that word, you could lose your channel. And I have worked too hard on my channel to lose it over one word. So I am not going to say that word, but I'm going to mention the first letter in that word, and I'm sure all of you will know what I mean. Because this word was mentioned on one of my other streams, one of the De Palma streams, one of the last De Palma streams I did with the Black Dahlia and Redacted. I decided to remove it until I can edit that part out. Because my good source, my good friend told me they don't care what context you say the word in. If you say the word, they could take down your channel. So I didn't want that to happen. Hey, Dirk. Hey, Milelect. Dirk, say Tarantino was referencing the movie from the 50s movie Kiss Me Deadly, where he got the briefcase idea. Oh, Thank you, Dirk. I like that. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, um, again, this I don't know why really I guess I find it darkly entertaining or like black comedy or something like that. Um, but so Marvin's head gets blowed off, and like Samuel L. Jackson is like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "I blew Marvin's face off." And there's blood all over them. There's blood all over the car. And Vince is like, "We must have hit a bump or something. You must have hit a bump," and the gun went off. And so they're kind of freaking out and stuff. And so Jules says, "Well, we're gonna go to my friend Jimmy's house, and Jimmy will help me out." So guess who is Jimmy? Jimmy is Quentin Tarantino. And so they get to Jimmy's house, and Jimmy is none too happy. And so basically, Jimmy tells Jules, he said, "When you pulled up outside my house, uh, was there a big sign there that said dead N word storage?" And Jules is like, "No, of course not, man." And he says, "No, did you see a sign out there that said that?" And he says, "No." And he says, "You know why? Because I don't have dead N-word storage." Okay. And so he's not happy at all. And his wife is due home, I think, within the hour from work. And he's like, "And if she comes home and she sees this, I'm going to get fucking divorced. And I don't want to get fucking divorced." And this is just like one of the most fantastic scenes ever, in my opinion. And so Jules finally decides that he's going to call the wolf. And the wolf is played by Harvey Keitel. And Harvey Keitel basically comes in and he runs the show and helps, tells them what to do. He doesn't clean the car up. He tells them how they're going to clean the car up. Also, because there's blood all over Vincent and Jules, they obviously got to take their clothes off. They're down to their, almost bare ass. And then they're getting sprayed with the water hose outside in Jimmy's yard. And then they have to have some of Jimmy's clothes, which they obviously are not fond of. And so the wolf and Jimmy are having a good laugh at Vincent and Jules' expenses. Dougie said Tarantino can get away with more shit than most. Obviously, he can. Obviously, he can, Dirk. So I don't feel like this movie is all neat and tidy and tied up with a bow at the end. It's not open ended, really, but it's a little messy by the end of it. But I love that. I love that. That was perfect for this movie. And I would recommend this movie to anyone. And I know I kind of went on kind of long about it, but it's just because I'm so enamored of all these characters in this movie, that I just wanted to share all of that with you. And so, with that being said, I'm going to quit talking about Pulp Fiction. And we're going to talk about Four Rooms, which you guys will notice this is a DVD. I do not have a Blu-ray or anything else, any other version of Four Rooms. So I'm going to attempt to find a Four Rooms trailer for you guys. Yeah, let's see. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys again.
Medium two-topping pizzas for $6.99 each, you could be in for a shock. Because hundreds of new electric vehicles are rolling out to deliver Domino's across America.
You good? I'm great.
This year, Miramax Films takes great pride in extending to you an advance invitation to celebrate New Year's Eve at the Monsignor Hotel, where a dozen of the most unusual guests ever will check in.
We have reservation.
And a lone bellhop named
Dead.
on his first day on the job
All you have to do is hold the fort. And the night's cake. Okay.
is in for the night of his life.
Kato, what's the problem?
I haven't got a problem. I've got problems. Plural.
My children are staying here tonight watching TV.
Get a bottle opener.
If something happens to my children, they will want to be you.
The five of us are a coven.
A coven of witches.
An oven full of witches.
A coven of witches!
Tell me that's not a face you can trust.
I can't handle this hotel by myself!
Are you saying my wife cheats on me?
I've got to get out of here. We want you to. I am not gonna cut off Norman's little.
Hell of a night, huh, Ted?
I'm stuck in a situation here which I can possibly begin to explain.
Tim Roth, Antonio Banderas, Jennifer Beals, Valeria Golino, Madonna, Ione Skye, Lily Taylor, Marissa Tomei, and Tamlin Tomita in a new film from directors Allison Anders, Alexander Rockwell, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino. 4 Rooms.
I've had a real bad night. Oh, really?
Okay. So I'm curious to know how many of you guys have seen 4 Rooms that are in here. All 8 of you that are in here right now, or the people that are currently chatting. Because this was one that, you know, I noticed that Tarantino's name was on it. And so, of course, even though he didn't direct all of these segments, I still really much wanted to see it. So Tarantino is not only a director of one of the segments, but he is also an executive producer on this film. So there are 4 stories, hence the title 4 Rooms. The first story is called The Honeymoon Suite. And it's basically about a coven of witches who wants the honeymoon suite so they can bring about the resurrection of one of their dead members. And so Tim Roth, as you've seen in the trailer, is the bellhop at this hotel. And this is his first night on the job. And so he gets summoned to the honeymoon suite, and is asked to get some things for them for their ritual that they're going to do. So yes, we have nudity in this. We have 2 topless girls, Ione Skye being one of them. And I was kind of shocked because, I mean, there may have been other movies where Ione Skye was topless or completely naked. But when I think of Ione Skye, I think of Say Anything. And her character in Say Anything was pretty, innocent. Um, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen Say Anything. That was a big 80s movie with John Cusack in it. So I was a little bit shocked when I saw her topless, but I got over it pretty quickly. Alicia Witt is also in this segment, although she's more of a background character that kind of pops up every once in a while and says some sarcastic things. She looks kind of like a kind of almost a goth chick. And there's a whole conversation with her and Madonna's character where Madonna's telling her what to do, and Alicia Witt is like, "You're not my mother." And Madonna says, "Yes, I am." And she says, "Well, why are we sleeping together?" So you've got little weird innuendos and stuff in there. Dirk, you say I've seen it, but don't really remember a need to revisit. um, Oh, you say you need to revisit because you don't really remember. Yeah, so I'm hoping me talking about this will encourage you guys. Like, if you have seen it and it's been a long time ago, it's certainly been a long time for me, even though I own the movie. I just had not got it out again to watch it. Uh, and so, like I've said about the De Palma stuff, this has given me a chance to go back and rewatch stuff, or possibly to watch some stuff that I hadn't even seen. Um, so, um, Aoni Sky's character was supposed to get some semen to put into this bubbling pot to bring about the resurrection of their, like I said, their dead member. And they go through this whole thing. This is very vulgar, I guess, maybe the best way to say. I'm not saying that's a bad thing for us adults to watch, but this would definitely not be the type of movie that you want to watch with the in-laws, or watch, with children around or anything like that. I would suggest not. Um, because it does have the nudity, it does have the harsh language, and it does have, quite a few sexual innuendos, and some not innuendo. Some of it's blatant. So basically, Ione Sky says that she messed up because when she was with her lover, she swallowed. And so we're all adults in here. We know what that means. And so they said, well, you're going to have to get some replacement semen for this. So basically, she ends up putting a spell on Tim Roth, and they have sex, and his semen ends up into the boiling pot, and they're able to bring about this resurrection that they wanted to do. Okay, so the second story is The Wrong Man, where Tim Roth again gets asked to come to room 403 to bring some ice to the guys up there, and they must have been drinking a little too much and got the room number wrong, because he ends up at 403, and it's not those guys in there. It's this crazy guy with a gun. He's got his woman tied up and gagged, and poor Ted, Tim Roth's character, comes right into this. And this is a crazy but fun segment of, at first the husband thinks that Ted, the bellboy, is having sex with his wife, or has had sex with his wife. And once the gag is out of her mouth, she kind of perpetuates this. Even after her husband has calmed down, she kind of gets it ratcheted back up. So Ted narrowly escapes death, only to get embroiled in the third story, which is I was thinking it was called Misbehaving something or other, but I know Misbehaving was in the title of it. So Ted gets kind of coerced or bribed into taking care of this couple's children. Um, the husband played by Antonio Banderas. And I know when I was talking about the Femme Fatale movie and how I didn't think Antonio Banderas was that good of an actor, at least in that movie, he seems to kind of more redeem himself in this movie, because it's a little bit hokey at times, but it's still, I think maybe just the character was better and he had a better material to work from. So he and his wife basically want to go out, and it is New Year's Eve. I forgot to mention that. So all of this stuff is going on during New Year's Eve, and they want to go out for a New Year's Eve evening, and they want to ring in the New Year, and they don't want to have their kids with them. So they get Ted to take care of their kids. And so basically, Antonio Banderas says, do you need to check on them like every 30 minutes to make sure they don't need anything or nothing bad has happened or they're not hurt or anything like that? And I'm going to give you, they kind of haggle back and forth. First, Antonio Banderas says $500, then he changes it to $300. But I do think that Ted finally gets to get the 500 out of him. So, and basically he insinuates that if Ted doesn't do this, he's going to kill him when he gets back. But Ted has already had a rough evening or a rough night so far. So when the couple leaves, he basically tells the kids that he's going to go back downstairs and not to call him too much. Well, they end up calling him for everything under the sun. And these are some bratty ass kids, I'll tell you. They basically harass poor Ted, and Ted does this thing that I hope no babysitters have ever done to to children. But he basically tells them the story. Eventually he tells them it's time to go to bed, and they need to go to sleep, and he tells them, you know what my babysitter did to me when I didn't want to go to sleep? And he gets out this jar of mentholatum or Big Salve, vapor rub, whatever you want to call it. And he says that his babysitter, when he was a kid, would put this on his eyelids. So if he opened his eyes, instead of, keeping them closed and staying asleep, that the mentholatum would burn their eyes or burn his eyes. So he does this to these kids, but they're evidently smarter than Ted was as a child, because the girl ends up going into the bathroom with her eyes closed, just runs some water over a rag in the sink and then wipes it off of her eyes. They're done. And then she tells her brother how to, get it off of his eyelids. So they're kind of horsing around, playing around, and they end up moving the mattress a little bit on the bed. And there's a dead prostitute in the bed. And there's been kind of running joke during this whole segment of whose feet stink. The kids were taking their shoes and socks off, and the girl blames it on her brother, and her brother blames it on her. And even there's even a scene where Ted is wrinkling up his nose. He just like that, and they cannot figure out what the smell is. So evidently it was the dead prostitute who's evidently been murdered and stuffed in this bed. So the girl screams and calls down to Ted, and he basically thinks she's lying, but then eventually he ends up there and sees the dead body. And all hell breaks loose basically right before the parents come back. And so that leads us in to the final story, the fourth story, which is The Man from Hollywood. And this is the Tarantino story. And this one's not a very long one, but I love Tarantino in this because, when you're doing your own thing, you can basically jump in there and make a character for yourself. And, when you're holding the reins, you can do whatever you want, good or bad or ugly or whatever. But in this case, it works. So Tarantino plays I guess, a Hollywood type of director. And he's talking about these movies that he made. And he's telling Ted all about them because Ted got summoned to the penthouse. And he called his boss and said he wasn't doing this anymore because he's had a really bad night and all that. And she's like, "Can you please bring him the champagne? Can you please? This guy's a very important person." So Ted relents. He goes up there, and it's Cristal. And Tarantino goes into this thing about how this is the best because it's Cristal. And then he has this long conversation with Ted about the Cristal and who all these other people are in the room with him, including Bruce Willis's character, who is in another room in this penthouse talking to his wife, and she's angry because he's not at home with her on New Year's Eve. And so once everybody's introduced, and Tarantino kind of loses it because somebody left a bottle of Cristal open, and he's upset that they're letting it waste. So then once he comes down from that, they get Ted embroiled in a scenario where if this guy can light the lighter 10 times in a row, then he will get Tarantino's car. If he can't, then evidently somebody's going to cut off this guy's pinky. So you at first think that Tarantino's going to cut off the pinky if he's not able to light the lighter 10 times in a row. No, they want Ted to do it. So Ted ends up, unfortunately, having to cut this guy's pinky finger off. And so it's like when that happens, it's like all hell breaks loose again. And so all the stories were fun. Of course, my favorite one is the Tarantino one, The Man from Hollywood. But I would encourage you guys, if you don't own it, if you can find a for free version, oh my gosh, yes. Definitely pick this one or look into watching this one because, like I said, it's got a great cast. It's got Tim Roth, Antonio Banderas, Jennifer Beals, Paul Catteron, Sammy Davis, Valeria Golino, Madonna, David Preval, Ione Skye, Lily Taylor, Marissa Tomei, and Tamlin Tomita. And it's written and directed by Allison Anders. Alexandria Rockwell, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino. Definitely a fun little film. Not one that I want to watch constantly, on heavy rotation or anything like that. But I enjoyed going back and revisiting this one. And this is a comedy, believe it or not, albeit it might be considered more of a black comedy. But I think I have reached the end of, I could keep rambling, but I won't. We're down to 6 people. We had more a little bit earlier, and I don't want to needlessly bore anybody in here. So, is there anything I could probably stay on here a couple more minutes or so, or even maybe to 9:30. If anybody wants to bring up anything or ask me anything or suggestions, if you've got any suggestions for directors that I could do the type of streams that like I've been doing with Tarantino or like what I've been doing with De Palma, only with another director. If there's a director that you always wish somebody would cover and they haven't, I'd be glad to take a crack at it anyway. So, like I said, I'll just go ahead and stay on here till 9:30, and then I'll call it a night. Because that will have meant that I was on here for an hour and a half, and I think that's a good even time. And I'm rambling, I know. I do want to remind everybody again, while you guys are thinking, that tomorrow I will be doing my first ever Ask Me Anything stream. So I know you guys are just so excited to ask me ask me questions tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Texas, you say that I should see. You should see Gas, Food, and Lodging by Allison Anders. That's one I've heard of, but I have not seen. I'll have to look into that one, Texas. Thank you for the suggestion. And Thursday, I will be doing another My Dinner with De Palma, showcasing Passion and Domino. So you can look forward to all that. And again, I probably will take Friday off from doing a stream. And I'm attempting, because I have 3 weeks of vacation already allotted to me at work. I'm attempting to get all of next week off. It has not been approved yet, but I did put in for it. So I may be able to do a stream most every night if I'm not working. I'm actually giving myself time to kind of relax, decompress, and maybe do some projects around the house that I've been putting off that need to be worked on. Hey Wes, does that mean that you guys are gonna do something at 10 or so? Because you say if y'all don't want to go to bed. Wow, you're just getting home. Are you just getting home from work? I say yikes if that's the case. I'm probably gonna have to work, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but I am gonna have to work late Fridays every, few weeks. It's not gonna be often. Wes, you say, yeah, we're doing a podcast. Nah, I've been out and about. Okay, well that's better than having to work that long. So are you and Uncle Bill and Garrett doing one, or just you and Uncle Bill, or? I'm being a nosy Rosie asking all these questions. Oh, goodness. Oh, I do want to ask you, Wes, are y'all going to come into my Ask Me Anything stream tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time? Wes, you said my work is never done. The Dead Pit OGs, boss. All righty. So you guys go hop on over and check the Dead Pit boys out. When we're done here, I'm sure they'd be glad to have you over there. So I hope that you guys okay, cool. I hope Uncle Bill stops in too if he can. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining me for this stream. I'm just about to get off of here for the night. But I want to thank everybody that was in here, everybody that commented, and for the future, everybody that's going to watch this later on. Texas, you say I'll try and be there, but I'm at my friend's place again because I had my surgery. Can't even talk, Texas. Sorry. Surgery early Thursday afternoon. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And, you know, you may not feel up to it. And I totally get that. And who knows, I may do another Ask Me Anything on down the line. So if people don't get to come to this one, maybe they can, you know, come in whenever I do another one. But it is now officially 9:30 my time. So again, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and commenting and all of that. And I hope a lot of you get to stop in for the Ask Me Anything live tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and also the My Dinner with De Palma on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And with all that being said, I am going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Y'all have a good night now.